LeBron James is an all-time great scorer, as LeBron James pointed out on Twitter, in saying that maybe he doesn't get enough love when it comes to putting the ball in the hoop. 17 seasons averaging 25 points per game, 17 straight. The next highest, you saw all those other greats at 12, which really is a staggering gap. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Ben Pickman and Wilton Jackson. And Ben, given that, is LeBron underrated as a scorer?
No, Robin. LeBron James is not underrated as a scorer. He's not underrated at anything, right? This is LeBron James, who is kind of unanimously recognized. He's the greatest, second greatest, maybe top three greatest players of all time. And everyone always touts his versatility, his passing and his scoring ability, his defensive ability, his all-around game. We just talk about his greatness all the time. And so I don't think any really part of LeBron's game is underrated. To me, this is just LeBron kind of being LeBron, the figure who likes to send these tweets out into the ether and get people talking and maybe, motivate himself in a little bit or try to prove the doubters, whoever those doubters are, wrong right ahead of the postseason. We often see this from LeBron, especially ahead of the postseason. He'll send out these kind of tweets like this. LeBron is third all time in points, and he's going to continue to progress and shoot up that list. As you mentioned it, 17 straight years, he scored 25 points per game. LeBron is elite at a number of things. Scoring is one of those facets. No, he's not underrated as a scorer. He's not really underrated at anything.
Well, I would agree that LeBron James is not underrated overall. He's the greatest player of all time in my mind. But when you specifically say as a scorer, sometimes he's not the first name that gets brought up. And I could easily argue he's also the greatest scorer of all time. You mentioned it. I mean, he very likely will pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for most points scored. He already has the most playoff points scored. He averages more points per game over his career than Kobe Bryant on better percentages. The same numbers as Kevin Durant. Those guys are always brought up as all-time great scorers, right? And he's able to do it by getting into the teeth of the defense. He's able to do it with the deep threes and the activation that the other parts of his game bring that allow him to score. So sometimes, Wilton, I do think he's not mentioned, just purely as a scorer when he certainly should be by all the evidence.
You're absolutely right, Robin. When you think about it, you have to also take a look at the way that the NBA game is played today. Like, we put so much emphasis on three-point shooting and how dominant it's taking over the game. And like today, when you think about players like Steph Curry and Dame Lillard hitting near half court and logo three-pointers consistently in games, and you look at the impact that's had across the league and the way that they get notarized, I mean, it's huge. And so because LeBron James doesn't necessarily play his game to just that one level, sometimes he does get overlooked in terms of being that efficient scorer because of the way that the impact of a three-point shooting. But as you and Ben have said, like, as far as like top three scorers, shooters, whatever you want to say, LeBron James is at the top of all of it.
Well, it's the aesthetics of it, right? I mean, you also talk about the peak scoring title type of performances. We just saw Steph Curry win another one. Obviously, what the great Michael Jordan did throughout his career, Kobe Bryant as well, scoring 81 in a game. We don't think of those sort of marks for LeBron. But when it just comes to consistency, putting points on the board at the high level, whether it's in the regular season or the postseason, he's kind of on a level of his own.